Watch this ant look closely because something has gone very wrong with it. It has left its trail, it has abandoned its colony, and now it is climbing up and up, alone, away from the warm, dark nest and the sisters and the work that is supposed to be its entire world, and it does not know why. It cannot know why, because this ant is no longer driving its own body. Something else has taken the wheel from the inside, and it is walking this ant slowly and very deliberately to the one exact place in the whole forest where it is meant to die. And no, this is not a horror film, and I am not exaggerating for effect. There is a living thing growing inside this ant right now that has seized control of its movements, that will march it to a precise height on a precise leaf, force it to bite down and lock its jaws shut forever, and then kill it, slowly, and grow up and out of the back of its head. This is the zombie ant fungus, and it is, without exaggeration, one of the most disturbing and most extraordinary things in the entire natural world. It begins with something almost invisible, a single microscopic spore drifting down through the humid air of a tropical forest, lands on the back of a carpenter ant as it goes about its ordinary day. That spore germinates, and it pushes a thread down through the ant's armored shell and into the body inside. And there, hidden, it begins to grow, spreading through the ant as a network of fungal cells, feeding on it from within, quietly while the ant carries on walking and foraging for days with absolutely no idea that it is already, in every way that matters, doomed. And then at some point the fungus flips a switch and the ant stops belonging to itself. It turns away from its colony, it climbs down from the high canopy where it normally lives into the cooler, damper understory below, and it starts to climb a plant stem. And this is where it gets truly chilling, because the ant does not stop just anywhere. Driven by the fungus, it climbs to a very particular height above the forest floor, often around a hand's width up, finds a leaf, moves to the underside of it, lines itself up, and clamps its jaws down onto the central vein of that leaf in a grip so final that scientists have a name for it. They call it the death grip. And here is the detail that should make the hair on your neck stand up. When researchers looked closely at what the fungus was actually doing inside the ant, they found something almost worse than mind control. The fungus does not really invade the ant's brain at all. Instead, it wraps itself around the ant's muscles. It threads through them, surrounds each fiber, and works them directly, like a puppeteer pulling strings, bypassing the brain entirely. Which means the ant's own brain may still be intact, still switched on, a helpless passenger locked inside a body that is no longer listening to it, feeling its own jaws close on that leaf, and unable to do a single thing about it. Because that spot, that exact height, that shaded underside of a leaf, that temperature, that humidity, is not chosen for the ant. It is chosen for the fungus. It is the perfect nursery. Once the jaws are locked, the ant dies, still hanging there, and over the next days, the fungus finishes consuming the body from the inside, and then it does the thing you will never quite unsee. It grows a long, thin stalk straight out of the back of the dead ant's head, reaching down toward the forest floor. And from the tip of that stalk, it rains a fresh cloud of spores down onto the ground below, directly onto the trails where that ant's sisters are still marching. Each spore, a new hijacker, waiting for the next ant to walk beneath. Sit for a moment with that image. A single ant, dead jaws locked to the underside of a leaf, with a pale stalk growing out of its skull, quietly seeding the ground below with the thing that killed it. But the ants are not defenseless, and this is where it becomes a genuine war. A healthy colony can smell when something is wrong with one of its own. When ants detect a nestmate that is infected and starting to behave strangely, they will grab it and carry it far away from the nest and dump it, quarantining the sick before the fungus can turn it into a spore cannon aimed at the whole colony. It is, in its way, an insect version of removing the infected before an outbreak spreads. And yet the fungus is relentless. In the right damp, warm conditions, it can carve out whole zones of the forest floor, graveyards, thick with the locked, stalk-crowned bodies of ants that never made it home. If a fungus that turns a living animal into a puppet and then grows out of its corpse is the kind of nightmare you want to understand more of, do me a quick favor and subscribe. There is a new wild survival story here every single week, because there are 2 final twists to this story, and the first one stretches the horror across an almost unimaginable amount of time, because this is not some new plague. When scientists examined fossil leaves preserved in ancient rock, they found something extraordinary. Leaves nearly 48 million years old carrying the unmistakable scars of the death grip, the exact bite marks of a zombified insect locking its jaws down, frozen in stone. Which means this fungus was hijacking the bodies of insects and marching them to their deaths tens of millions of years before a single human being existed. It has been quietly perfecting this one horrifying trick for longer than we can really comprehend. And now the second twist, the one that turns the whole nightmare completely on its head. Because for all of its horror, this fungus is not a villain in its forest. It is one of its guardians. By keeping any single kind of ant from ever exploding in number and overrunning everything, the zombie fungus helps hold the whole rich web of the rainforest in balance, a brutal gardener, pruning the forest to keep it diverse. And for us, the cordyceps family is not a monster at all. It is a treasure chest. Relatives of this very fungus have given human medicine some of its most important drugs, including compounds we use to calm the immune system so that transplanted organs are not rejected, and others being studied right now against cancer and disease. The thing that turns an ant into a puppet is, to us, a pharmacy. And yes, this is the fungus that inspired the monsters in The Last of Us, but you can rest easy tonight because it cannot do this to you. It is exquisitely, obsessively tuned to the body of one kind of ant, and your warm, huge, utterly different body is simply the wrong world for it. The nightmare stays in the forest. So look at it one more time, that lone ant, high on a leaf it never meant to climb, jaws locked in a grip it never chose, a stalk rising from its head against the green. It never had a say in any of this. A single spore drifted down out of the air on an ordinary day, and from that moment its body slowly, quietly stopped being its own, until it climbed to a stranger's plan, bit down and became a launch pad for the very thing that killed it. One small ant turned into a monument to one of the most patient, most chilling masterpieces evolution has ever produced. So if this strange, unsettling little story got under your skin, subscribe. There is a new wild survival story here every week, and be honest with me, down in the comments. We like to believe that we are in control of our choices, of our bodies, of the direction we walk. That ant believed it too, right up until the moment it didn't, and it never once felt the wheel being taken. So how sure are you, really, that the thing steering you is entirely you? Because somewhere in a warm green forest tonight, an ant is climbing a stem it never meant to climb, toward a leaf it will never let go of, and it has absolutely no idea that it is already gone.